Okay, good morning and good afternoon, dear alumni. Thank you very much to join us here from New York. Welcome all of you from any place you are. I'm very happy, very pleased to announce that this fellowship program has turned 10 years since it started. And I cannot, of course, ignore to say that we are very proud of what the program has achieved over the last years. 269 alumni from 50 different countries, ranging from Africa, Middle East, Europe, Australia, Asia, and North America. I think all of them has experience and benefit from this program. They went back home and transferred the knowledge they gained about all the diverse society and the new perception they form in their communities. So I think all this would have not been possible without the consistent financial and political support of the Federal Republic of Germany. And I take this opportunity to thank the Permanent Mission of Germany in New York for their continuous engagement with the UNAOC team and making this program a great success. I welcome now Mrs. Amelie Lothman from the Political Department in the Permanent Mission of Germany. And thank you for joining us to the start of this program. And of course, Ambassador Gunther Sauter, the permanent representative of Germany to the United Nations, will join us in the last segment of the program. I also want to recall that the program has also benefit, from the in-kind support of Morocco, Egypt, Qatar, Spain, and the League of Arab States. So let's get rid on the program. We have 5 panels and 20 alumni to be the panelists. We have all of you, we know we have a short time, so try to keep your answer very brief. Also myself, I will try to be brief. And then let's start with the first panel, promoting intercultural relations and intercultural dialogue. Well, let me introduce this panel, telling you that during the last year, we have been growing awareness across the UN system of the need to work closely with religious actors and faith-based organizations to be what we are all looking for, a more sustainable, peaceful, and foster social cohesion. Interreligious intercultural dialogue is a tool for building mutual understanding among different civilizations, cultures, religions, and beliefs. And I'm pleased to refer to the UN General Assembly resolution which was adopted last week on the promotion of culture of peace that refers to the work of UNOSC. So I will ask the panelists 2 broad questions, and then of course you are free to answer and to focus and to express your own concern and your own response and let's say position about this issue. The first question is very clear. What role, from your point of view, can religious actors play in contributing towards inclusive and peaceful society within the framework of the challenges that has posed COVID-19? And the second question is, how can new media be used to combat religious prejudices and encourage a dialogue between people of different worldviews? So we have, I think, 4 very interesting panelists that are going to discuss and engage in I hope, in a productive exchange of views. We have first my compatriot, Mrs. Alba Sabate Gauchat, is a 2020 fellow. Is a professor of journalism and global communication management at the Blanquerna School of Communication of International Relations of Ramon Llull University. He's also deputy director of Blanquerna Observatory in Media, Religion and Culture, and in Disciplinary Research Center Communication and Religion. And she is, last but not least, member of the Global Board of Directors of the World Association for Christian Communication. And in 2019, he was fellow of our also very good counterpart, Kai Sid. Then, so I will give you the floor now, Albert, in order to start, and then they will be followed by Mr. George Kass, Mrs. Radwan Sacker, and Mr. Yehuda Silverman. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Excellency. It's a pleasure to be able to be part of this dialogue and this debate today. I think the two launch questions are very interesting ones, and we should reflect and discuss a lot on them. In my opinion, the role that religious actors play in contributing to peaceful societies mainly is to be an example. And to be an example at all levels. An example depending on the level, of course, at they are, not only talking about, let's say, at a state level, but also at community level. It's very interesting and very important that religious leaders have this attitude of dialogue through communication skills, also at community level. So they know and they are aware, they are an example, and this example can be followed by members of course, of their communities. And then new media in this field has a lot to do, of course, because media should be considered not a tool, but a space, and a space for dialogue, and is a space for encounter for these religious actors with all the other actors. I think that to open the discussion also to think about media as a space where, as an agora, where all of us can be, is a step to begin for this dialogue.
Well, thank you very much, Alba. I agree with you that at the community level, and the media being not a tool, but a place, an environment for dialogue have to be taken into account. So now I will give the floor to Mr. John Kass, founding member of the Forum for Religion and International Affairs. He's the director of FODIP, the Forum for Discussion of Israel and Palestine. And Mr. Kass holds a master's degree from SOH University of London in International Studies and Diplomacy. So, John, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, and it's a pleasure to be here with everyone today. I'm in London, and I suppose I'm going to reflect on these two questions from the context of the UK. And in my experience of working with religious communities, with faith communities here in the UK, what's interesting to think about is how some people will say faith communities are the first in and the last out. They have deep roots into communities. They have resources within communities, whether they're a physical building, networks of volunteers, people who are committed to a community. And that resource, that capital is there to be mobilized willingly by faith communities in times of need on issues of critical concern to that community. In the last 9 months or so around the world, what we've seen, and certainly in the UK, this is true, faith communities stepping up and serving the communities around them, regardless of the faith or belief of the people in need. And that's a really remarkable testament to the power of faith communities, especially here in the UK, where faith, religion is seen as something very often, for many people, faith is something that is backwards. It shouldn't be in the public space. It should be relegated to the private sphere. But actually, in the last 9 months, faith communities, certainly in some of the most deprived parts of the UK, have stepped up to support people in need. And that's a really fantastic example for society as a whole. But I think there's a risk that comes with that institutions seek to instrumentalize faith communities. And so I think what's important as we move forward through the COVID crisis and into a post-COVID world is a partnership approach between institutions and faith communities, whether at a national level or at a community level, that values and recognizes the strengths and weaknesses of those partnerships in a way that is respectful, but also savvy to the problems that might emerge down the line. And just briefly on the question of new media, what's been interesting also thinking about COVID is how, certainly in the UK, throughout the height of the pandemic, minority faith communities were, when you picked up a newspaper, minority faith communities were often seen as potential sources of spread of infection. Thinking about around Ramadan, certain other festivals, fear around gathering of communities. But now that we're heading towards Christmas, everything is being done to ensure that Christmas can happen. And it's interesting to note within the media how the majority religious experience and the minority religious experience is spoken about in a way that has the potential to fuel mistrust, suspicion, and fuel stereotypes around minority religions. And I think that's something to be worried about and is addressing going forward.
Thank you very much, Josh. I think you are right. During the COVID-19, we have seen how communities play a very, very, very positive role. I will ask at the end some other question to you and to all of you, because of course of your intervention, there are ideas and elements that I think we have to get into more detail. So thank you very much for the first intervention, George. And now we move to Mrs. Radwa Sakar. It's from Egypt, as Misri. You are fellow of 2020 of UNAOC. You are an administrative assistant and consultant to the Executive Director of Anna Lindh Foundation, also a very good partner of UNAOC. You had a Fulbright Scholar at Indiana State University 2015, initiated seminar promoting dialogue to bridge the gap between the Western Arab culture. We need that because unfortunately we are not going in the right direction. And you hold a master's degree in European Study, International Relations, as well English Translation and Cultural Studies. So Radwa, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for giving me the floor. It's a great privilege and an honor to take part in this very highly anticipated event. For me, religious actors have a strong potential to challenge or like change or even perpetuate prevailing attitudes of the people who follow their faith or share their belief. So I think they can play a very influential role in reinforcing intercultural dialogue or like putting an end to discriminatory attitudes who have like other religions or come from different backgrounds. I think that the role that they can play, particularly in the context of, the post or like the post-corona COVID-19 world, we have seen, I agree with Josh, we have seen a rise in xenophobic attitudes and racial profiling of people who come from countries that were considered at one point like the hotspots of the virus. Like, for example, here in Egypt, we have seen, like, also I've heard that a lot in whether in like traditional forms of media or new media technologies like social media, like because Europe at one point was, the hotspot of the virus. So Europeans who are like were here in Egypt as tourists or expatriates, again, they were like susceptible to this kind of this discrimination or like let's say xenophobic attitude because they came from countries like, for example, Italy or maybe like Spain at one point as well. That happened. So I think the role that they can play is the role that they can play is to promptly speak out against any kind of hate speech incident, whether it's like in writing, verbal speech, or any kind of form of communication that can entail subtle perpetuation of stereotypes. Also like to rally up their people to follow their lead and to like speak up or like stand for the people who are victims of this kind of discrimination. Also like to give them the opportunity, the religious leaders, to partner up with the significant regional, national and international institutions, whether they are like governmental or non-governmental, and to be given like prominence and solid visibility on social media and like traditional media as well, like to disseminate a message of peaceful coexistence and tolerance and acceptance, because when they speak out, their message can have like a wide-ranging impact on their people. Also, I think that they have to be really strongly involved in media in general, like whether like developing media strategies in consultation with media experts, or like given this like strong like or influential platform to disseminate a message of acceptance and tolerance. I think in the past we have seen like some instances of that as well, like religious leaders, like the role of religious leaders, for example, in the Christchurch terrorist attack that took place in 2019. We have seen the Pope condemning. He's like the first to condemn this and like to like not to encourage further incitement to violence. The same goes also for like Muslim world leaders. Whenever an attack happens, like whether it's like racially motivated or religiously motivated, they are the first as well. They can be the first to condemn this, so that people don't really get swayed or affected by a hate crime. So I think they play a very influential role, and the government and the civil society organizations have to like consolidate this role as well through like striking collaboration and partnerships with them. For the second question about media and what role it can play in intercultural dialogue, of course it can play a huge role. Like hate speech, I think it should be addressed should be addressed on all levels. Like we shouldn't just allow hate speech to get by or like to disseminate in the name of freedom of speech, because hate speech can actually incite, yes, it can incite violence, and people have intellectual, not only do they have like intellectual information about people who live in other countries, but they do have like strong emotional responses. So whatever is displayed in media, people can have like emotional responses, and it can actually instigate them to display any kind of behavior, which of course could be harmful to people from minority groups in any society. So this is what I think about these two questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Radwa, for the answer to the two questions. We'll come back to you. I think we will have at the end some minutes to comment on your intervention. And thank you very much. So now the last panelist of this panel is Yehuda Silberman from Canada. You were a fellow from UNAOC in 2018. You have a postdoctoral faculty diversity fellow at Ursuline College. You have been a facilitator in intercultural dialogue, and also you hold a PhD in conflict analysis and resolution focused on international peace. So Yehuda, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It's great to be here. And in response to the two questions, many of my fellow colleagues have shared some important insights, and to echo on part of them, there is a strong need for religious leaders to connect with their leaders all over their communities. Many religious leaders may be more isolated and marginalized, and it's important that everyone's connected to one another. Some religious leaders may not always be connected to the internet as well. They may not always appreciate being connected to the internet world. And it's important that the religious leaders that are connected reach out to them and let them know what's going on, make them feel included, have dialogues with them to hear different perspectives on what everyone can do together to build peace in their communities and throughout the world. It's also important for religious leaders to utilize the importance of their communication. So to focus on words of not of division and fear, but of inspiration, unity, and hope. Communication messages have a strong impact subconsciously and consciously in the hearts and minds and souls of our humanity. And therefore, religious leaders really need to make sure that they are aware of the message that they are saying and to continue conversations with everyone and continue building bridges from outside of their faith as well. There's always a chance to connect, and as the digital world continues to expand, there are more opportunities to create new initiatives. And to follow up on the second question on how new media can be utilized for the challenges in religious stereotypes, there are a lot of different initiatives. And one of the ideas that I strongly feel is important is the connection between new media and mainstream media. New media and mainstream media should be closely connected to one another. There should be collaborations. As we see in new media, videos are trending throughout the world, social media posts, there's many different applications. And so the media sometimes highlights some of them. And we need more new media influencers to really highlight the importance of dialogue, have short little video clips of interfaith dialogue. We have to get peace trending to be popular, make it interesting for everyone and inclusive. And new media is always creating new initiatives with their digital spaces. And there is a whole new world where the two worlds of new media and the mainstream media can connect and collaborate. And finally, it's important also that there is a necessity to make sure that minorities are heard, particularly in new media. And this gives them a platform, because in the new media, anyone could download an application if they have access to the internet and have a smartphone or some other device and create video clips and other posts, and they can become very popular and trending. And so with the stories of different minorities, this can help build on conflict prevention, social cohesion, and really emphasize the importance of dialogue and the ushering of more possibilities for peace in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Yehuda. Thank you, all of you, the four of you. I think you were brief, right to the point. I will take from each of you some, let's say, conclusion or element for reflection. I think from Alba, I will take the important message that the media is not a tool, but it's a space. We have to be today accustomed that the environment we are surrounded today is an environment that is not only composed by reality, but also virtual reality for this space, what we say, what is being transmitted. And I think that is important to take into account. From yours, so if you want to add something more on that, Alba, I will ask you 1 minute to elaborate. From your side was also very much in agreement about the role of communities during the COVID-19. But my question will be, what are your perceptions? Communities have been active, they are needed. Religious leaders are active, they are needed. But have you seen them working together? Or still each community take care of their own community and they don't take care of the other? So that's also something we have to reflect in our discussion and our conclusion. Radwa, I think will enhance the surge and the increase of xenophobia and racism. Unfortunately, during COVID-19, after the first, let's say, month, we were all very happy to listen this kind of solidarity, everybody applauding on the balconies and showing the comments. Then we discovered that there was tremendous insolidarity, and racism and xenophobia was coming back. So I think we have to really take into account that unfortunately we are now in a worse scenario that even before COVID-19 started. And finally, Yehuda, you were absolutely right. I think that should be the main conclusion of this panel. Yes, we need religious leaders and religious faith organization to engage in the debate, in the creation of this social cohesion in our society. We need them, but we need to act in interactive relation with each other. And then I think on media, well, I think the idea was how we are going to use this connection between the new media and old media, and how, why we don't have a pool of influencer to convey positive message of fraternity, respect, etc. Why we don't create UNAOC influencers, you know, around the world that they will send in, you know, the positive message. So that's maybe to create influencers from this youth fellowship program could be a good example that after you finalize the fellowship, you continue to be a positive influencer. And that is come to the end is to have positive message. We are, of course, frustrated to be ruled and be guided by negative messages. So I think in the UNOC, we are now trying to change the terminology of our work. So I give you advice, a guidance. Don't talk anymore about tolerance. Talk about mutual respect. Tolerance is a negative concept. Don't talk anymore about coexistence. It's a negative concept. Talk about living together or Spanish convivencia. Don't talk, Yehuda, even I know your idea and everybody, myself, give the voice to minority. No, there are no minority. There are citizens in the world with the same rights. We are all equals. So there is no minority that have to have the words. So positive message, citizenship, global citizenship, we are all. So that is the positive message that they have to be conveyed. So you have 1 minute each if you want to comment. If you don't want to comment, you are much welcome. So I don't know, Alba, just 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Yeah, just to elaborate a little bit on this space, on media as a space. Yeah, a space for dialogue, and just to take into account that this new media as a space for dialogue requires the same that a face-to-face space for dialogue requires, which at the end is the basis of a conversation, which is listening actively to the other. And this could seem very obvious, but we really need to reinforce this skill of listening, because the dialogue starts with a conversation between two or more people, with this active listening and the active understanding of the other. And media should play, this new media should play this role. And at the end, we are talking about a concept that my colleagues also commented, which is trust. If we reinforce this trust by listening to the other, by having rigorous media who gives us rigorous knowledge to promote this trust, of course, the dialogue, not only among individuals, but also among these communities will be a reality. Media and journalists have a big responsibility here, and I think it's our challenge, but also our duty to promote this responsibility and this good action for this big challenge. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your question. It's a really good one. In my experience of doing this work, of interfaith work in the UK, I've sat with faith communities from London to Manchester, from all parts of the country. And a recent survey found that of all the charities in the UK, a quarter, 1 in 4, are faith-based. So it may be that they're working within a faith community, they may be inspired by their religious principles and ideas to do work in their communities, from tiny organizations run by volunteers to organizations of many employees, a quarter. So there's a lot of work going on out there that is being driven through and by faith. And in the last 9 months, unquestionably, faith has risen to the challenge. The question, though, is about whether or not they've worked together. And I think that's a really interesting question, because in my experience, that's not really been the case. And it's not, and I say that as someone who is an interfaith professional who's worked in this space for many years. And in some respects, I lament that fact. But I see in that fact a systemic problem, which is that the faith communities, whether in the UK or elsewhere, are under-resourced, particularly at a grassroots level. Faith communities, there is an assumption that this community can do it by itself. There is no need for support from institutions. There is no need for support from government. In fact, in the UK, the links at a local level between faith communities and local government have been whittled away over the last 10, 15 years, to the point where during the crisis, they were turning to organizations like the ones that I worked for to come in and remediate those spaces that they themselves had been cutting for many years. So I think the answer is faith communities understand their communities, they understand the problems that their congregants face and that their neighbors face, because they live side by side. But they need support, and they need support over a sustained period of time. It's not something that can be turned on and off. And so it is that partnership approach. And as Alba was saying, it's an approach based on trust. And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George. So, Radwa, it's your turn. 1 minute, please, because we are short of time.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I actually just wanted to stress the point that you kindly mentioned. The use of terminology is really very important, that we have to reinforce like the dissemination of positive terminology and jargon when it comes to speaking about different cultures. The notion of global citizenship as well is very important to like work on. So I just wanted to agree on this point. For media, I think the advent of new media or the internet and new media technologies have created like new avenues for media consumers to be media producers and to contribute to the narratives that are being, produced to the public. So I think the collaboration, some sort of collaboration between traditional media and new media would be very like effective, and also like to train media experts, like civil society organizations can maybe like have this on their agenda, like training media experts to contribute to the narratives that are being produced. So it could be like a way to kind of limit hate-mongering narratives that profile different, like certain cultures. So I think that would be a good way to do it. Also, I wanted to just pinpoint the role of entertainment media as well. Is very like popular culture, or like media that kind of portrays popular culture, or yes, is very also important when it comes to speaking about different cultures. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Raya, for your points. And now finally, Yehuda, you have the last word.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And echoing from my fellow colleagues, there is an importance in recognizing that when we're talking about dialogue, dialogue first begins from within ourselves. And there is a need for more intrapersonal peace frameworks to recognize what messages are that we are telling ourselves, and then how the media, the new media and the mainstream media is subconsciously and consciously perhaps creating messages that we absorb, whether it's intentional or unintentional. And it's also important to note that conflict prevention is essential, because oftentimes we're looking to try and resolve the many issues, though if we focus on prevention, we can build many more peace initiatives. And to end off, the word international has the letters INTERNAL, internal. Peace begins within each of us. And thank you very much for your time, and it was a great discussion.
Thank you very much. I congratulate all of you for your intervention, your proposal, and new ideas. We will get the stock of all of them. So thank you very much. Stay on, follow the debate. Now we move to the second panel. We take a break.
Yes, 1 minute.
1 minute break. Okay, 1 minute break. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we move to panel 2, drawing the line between hate speech and freedom of speech. You are aware, all of you, that hate speech, xenophobia, and intolerance-related discourse has been spreading like wildfire on the conventional online platform, as well as what we call the dark web. This phenomena has sparked the old debate where the draw line between hate speech that amounts to incitement to violence and freedom of expression. So UNOSC calls for mutual respect and refraining from spreading hate speech within the framework of human rights law and international law. So it's a very, very interesting, debate that we are going to open. We have the French case, the New Zealand case. So 2 examples how we are going to live. So we have 4 panelists.
Yes, 4.
Yes, 4 panelists.
Mustafa just arrived.
That, yes, because we were missing our friend from Morocco, Mr. Mustafa Senghel. He's a 2020 fellow. Merci d'être avec nous. He's a journalist from this very prestigious Moroccan news agency, MAP. He followed me a lot of time, MAP, and a lot of news coverage.
That's true. Exactly.
Yes, yes. So sometimes not so good, but anyhow, it's not your fault, So he's head a very important Amazigh service of Moroccan news agency, where he read articles related to the promotion and cultural diversity in Morocco. particular Moroccan Amazigh identity. I was very close friend of Akhardan, the old Akhardan.
Very interesting.
Very interesting personality. Okay, so welcome.
He passed away lately.
I know. I've been in contact with her family. Okay, so Mustafa, you have the floor, and then we will have David Fisher, Mrs. Elisabeth Arif, and Mrs. Samila Tajjeen. So Mustafa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you to the UNAOC. I would like to go back to our virtual exposure to talk concretely. We had a virtual exposure with Twitter during the fellowship, and during that fellowship, that virtual exposure, we learned that Twitter. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I hear you. Go ahead.
So we learned about the way Twitter works in terms of removal of radical and terrorist content and hate speech through algorithms and machine learning. We learned that, for instance, when a tweet promotes a discourse that is deemed illegal in a certain country, it can be withheld and prohibited in that specific country, but still be visible and read in other countries that do not consider that content illegal or problematic. So that got me thinking, actually. That means that freedom of expression and hate speech are like those notions that are highly flexible in space from a country to another country, but also flexible in time within the same country from a period of time to another period of time, you know, in terms of law, for instance, and case law. So notions like public order, blasphemy, public decency are very flexible, and so are hate speech and freedom of expression. So drawing the line is difficult, and it depends on traditions and political systems and as the way they are translated actually into legislations. That being said, new media can play a unique role in bridging this kind of gaps between civilizations, between cultures, between peoples. New media is by definition participatory and transnational. This means that they allow to diversify civic content and strengthen social contracts by connecting with grassroots initiatives. In that sense, I would like to think about the UNAOC Fellowship as a training of trainers program. The reflections and knowledge acquired in the fellowship would have a good impact if they are translated locally within the different countries. For instance, 3 weeks ago, I delivered some elements I acquired from the UNAOC Fellowship to a group of young Moroccan people in the framework of a virtual event on intercultural dialogue organized by the German organization Friedrich Ebert in Morocco. So that is one positive impact new media can play. Another positive impact is taking into account the fact that new media can be used to cover local stories that convey universal values UNOC is promoting and which I personally believe in, like mutual understanding, as you said, excellency, and diversity. In Morocco, for instance, that might translate into covering stories of sub-Saharan migrants who establish themselves in Morocco, or for instance, promoting Amazigh culture in Morocco. And I wrote several articles that tackle these two subjects, for instance. So I strongly believe that respecting diversity of cultures is key to combating hate speech and strengthening social cohesion, just as the UNOC motto goes, unity in diversity. I think diversity is what makes the world interesting, first of all, and then cultures are meant actually to be different. So in order to understand this simple but fundamental idea, we need to maintain dialogue and learning about each other's perceptions. And new media can be of a key importance to achieve this endeavor. my colleague Kautar and myself chose to tackle the issue of French caricatures and their impact on some Muslim majority countries within our MENA project in the framework of the UNAOC program. So we tried to find common language in a time where each other, this is how we felt actually, that each side was demonizing the other on social and mainstream media. So we invited people from Morocco and France to different backgrounds, to provide some perspective rather than providing inflammatory rhetoric, and suggest ways to bridge the communication gap between nations and foster mutual understanding between peoples. So in a nutshell, I would say that the role of young people is key in combating hate speech, just as it is outlined in the resolution 2250 of the Security Council of the United Nations, especially those working in the field of media. This has a tremendous impact on how people approach hate speech and freedom of expression. And being myself a journalist, I think journalists are today in the front line of the battle of fostering mutual understanding. We have a great deal of responsibility in that sense. Thank you, Excellency.
Thank you, Mustafa. Thank you for raising the very difficult line between to respect and to the freedom of expression, at the same time to stop, eradicate hate line through the channel of media. And so it's very difficult to draw the line. But anyhow, that is the question we have to discuss today in this panel. So thank you very much. We will come back to you if we have time at the end. So now we move to Mr. David Fisher. He's a fellow of 2020 of the UNOC. You are media coordinator for Human Rights Watch. You have worked for several newspapers and television outlets in German Rhine-Main region. And you join also the crew NGO Schild Mail Liberum as field media officer reporting on the situation of refugees in the Greek island of Lesbos and Samos. So the floor is yours, David.
Thank you. Maybe I can kind of jump off of what Mustafa last mentioned. So I think when it comes to drawing the line between hate speech and freedom of expression, it always depends on who draws the line. So in the democratic societies that, or in the society that I live in personally, I can kind of rely on that it's going to be parliaments, courts, with the help of civil society to some extent, not always as much as it could be included, but there is a debate, and I'm glad there's one. And in autocracies, the situation is very different. If an autocratic ruler draws his own or her own personal line between freedom of expression or hate speech, then in the end, there is a button someone can push, and then parts of the internet or the entire internet is turned off. And unfortunately, this still happens today. So the question to me kind of is, is it realistic to get a universal approach to drawing this line between freedom and expression and hate speech? Or do we have to make do with the regional line at the moment and then somehow come to find each other? But on the other hand, drawing a regional line in the world of where the internet is global, or at least parts of it are global, how helpful is that even? So to be honest, I don't have the answers to this, and I fear that at the end of this panel we'll probably not have solved the issue. But I'm glad we have this discussion. So that kind of brings me to the second point that we can pick up here. How can new media be used to promote this, to promote freedom of expression and stop hate speech at the same time? I think what we're doing is part of that process. So meeting here together, well, I'm in Germany. I think all my colleagues are spread around the world, and still we can somehow make it work to discuss this. I'm not sure how that would have been possible without the technology that we have access to. And we need to use this technology to find a way to regulate this technology at the same time. But I think the UNAOC, with our fellowship, with our experience that we made, can set a ground basis for that, for working on that. We have to acknowledge that hate speech is one of the large problems of our time, of our society, or definitely of the society where I live in. And all the solutions, again, as Mustafa said already, are a reflection of the society, and not only of the people in the society, but also of the times of the society. And the solutions that we find now, they will probably not be valid in a couple of, well, I don't know, a couple of years, a couple of decades, in a century. And we have to continue this discussion. I think that's the most important thing, for me to say at this point. Thanks.
Thank you very much, David, for raising. I mean, that is going to be my question to all of you at the end of this discussion, of this panel, because of course everybody is aware of what we are confronting. Everybody, as you said, there are different regulations, different attitude and behavior. But as you say, the new technology is global, so you cannot avoid to have expansion of this hate speech around the globe. So we need a kind of UN regulation, some kind of, but I will come back to that at the end. So thank you very much to enlighten us with your comments. So now we move to Mrs. Elisabeth Alisphere. She's from UK. You are fellow of 2020 also. You are founder of the Voice of Salam. You are working with Jewish and Muslim and in subject of community cohesion and gender inequality and refugee, migrant. You have, you was awarded the title of Sacred Activist of the Year. So we expect from you to enlighten us with your experience and your commitment. So Elisabeth, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It's a really critical time, I think, to be discussing these issues. As it's been already mentioned, hate speech is on the rise. I've witnessed, particularly on social media, anti-refugee, xenophobic rhetoric, terrible incidents of anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim hate. But at the same time as witnessing that, I've also seen voices being shut down, dissenting voices that need to be heard. So LGBT, queer Muslim voices, for example, women's voices. And I think it's about getting that balance when we talk about drawing the line between freedom of speech, which is universal. We should have the right to share diverse views, to criticize, to engage, to want to develop perhaps new ways of working, but also we also have the right to be free from harm for other people. And I think while it's easy to identify violent rhetoric as hate speech, what may be problematic to one person or offensive may not be to another person. I think that's where it's really important to take into account tone, context, and work with the communities in particular. The problem with hate speech is it's not just the violent impact, but the impact on social cohesion. Hate speech otherizes communities. It amplifies difference rather than focusing on what we have in common and building common citizenship. It amplifies difference and it spreads fear. And that fear affects both those who are vilified, who may retreat into their own communities, who may be unsafe, who may not feel safe engaging in religious practice at their own place of worship or on the streets. And also it affects those who are perhaps on the fringes of society who are engaging in far-right rhetoric. I recently attended a training in far-right extremism, and I was shocked to find out that one of the newest groups in the UK was actually launched by a teenager, and that to me was incredibly alarming to discover what were they what were they suffering from in their life, what narratives were they encountering to at such a young age engage in such violent and divisive rhetoric. So it's critical that we use media to set clear boundaries and guidelines on platforms to eradicate content, so have clear reporting mechanisms and guidelines, so authorities such as Twitter and Facebook take down content more quickly than at present. But as it was said in the last session, I think we also need to focus on prevention. So with media, promoting shared dialogue, sharing vulnerability of how to engage and discuss on critical issues, sensitive issues with respect, how we can live together and embrace diversity within and outside communities, so that we're not silencing marginalized groups within communities under the banner of, say, blasphemy or orthodoxy, but we're also including diverse opinions within and outside communities. And I think it requires honesty and transparency. But I think if we start with a platform of respect and understanding and shared citizenship, then we can work forward with that. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Elisabeth, for very clear answer to the question. We'll come back to you later on. So then finally we have Samiha Tajin from Algeria. Is also a fellow from 2020. You've been academic advisor for the Advanced Science and Creativity Association, and you are currently pursuing a master's degree in media and cultural study. So the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Your Excellency, for giving us this opportunity to answer these questions. Well, I believe that drawing the line is difficult, or in all, I believe also that with what David have said, that it is important to ask this question. And I believe these kind of questions are more important than even the answers themselves. I mean, given it, the debate and having our own opinions about such issues is really important, and to draw the line and to highlight what should be done and what should not be done. Well, I believe that it's like agreed with my colleagues. I believe that the difficulties is due to our different experiences, backgrounds, ideology, one. And for example, if there's someone who have done or have been based his values and principle all his life upon, it would be like a little bit difficult for him or for her to see some other groups crossing them. So people should realize, I believe that people should realize that freedom of expression or freedom of speech is not absolute, and it should be applied from both sides, from the sender and the receiver themselves. When it comes to new media and how it should be used to promote freedom of expression while also preventing hate speech, I personally believe that, or if I can say that I can go back to what Alba in the previous panel have said about social media for being a space. And people need also to realize, especially in the Arab world, that new media is no longer an entertainment tool, is no longer something that has to do with just connecting to communicate with your fellows, but also it's about it's really widen, if I can say, public sphere for being a virtual public sphere, of course, and people need to realize or have enough literacy, enough knowledge on how they use social media in order to prevent themselves as persons, to prevent hate speech, and while keeping freedom of expression, double think their opinion before sharing in order to not be more of hate speech, if I can say, hate spreaders. When it comes to the cohesion, or if I can say social cohesion of what Elisabeth said, freedom of speech can show us similarities, and it makes us feel included, which is, while hate speech shuts the doors of acceptance and having a dialogue. And I believe also this could be applied on both when it comes to freedom of expression and dialogue on intercultural and interreligious dialogues. And this is one of the things that really guarantee for us a social cohesion. And I believe we'll need to revisit these kind of concepts. Thank you. This is what I have. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for your intervention, Samira. And now we'll just concluding, because we don't have too much time, but we will have 1 minute to comment. I think, I mean, all of you agree that it's very difficult to draw a line between the freedom of expression and to combat hate speech. But I mean, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights have two articles, Article 18, Article 19. Article 18 is about the respect of religions, conscience, and belief. Article 19 is about freedom of expression. Can you tell me who is the more important, even in democratic societies? If we want to implement the Universal Human Rights Declaration, is more important human expression than to respect religion and the expression of conscience? So my question to you is that I think it's a full debate. I think we all are democratic, not democratic, in favor of freedom of speech. No one wants to have, I mean, the right to speech, but now it's a new tendency that, of course, we are concerned, we are appalling to see how hate speech is taking part, and as you say, this undermining the fabric of our social inclusion. And I will just conclude. I mean, I have two more comments. One is that there are two approaches. I mean, I would recommend to you to read the report of New Zealand government that have just published with 44 recommendations. And he recommends to have a law enforcement of hate speech. New Zealand is not a democratic country, yes. It's not very much advanced about freedom of expression, yes. But they are concerned how hate speech is going to undermine the fabric of society. So the other approach is France, that they want to have what I call the fundamentalism of freedom of speech. You know, that I mean, we can go to any, and of course they have the right to have that, but it's a different approach. So that's number one. Number two is how we are going to regulate that. I mean, of course, I know that regulation look like we want to intervene, but at the same time, can we? And David was very, very clear to say, well, let's use our technology to change the way this technology, and Mustafa was mentioned at the beginning with this logarithm. Who controls the logarithm? Are you controlling logarithm? So how we are going to act with the social network corporation? Are doing enough? Facebook, Google, Instagram, they're doing their job? Or do you think they have to do better job? So that are my conclusions. So 1 minute for each of you. So you start, Mustafa. Please, 1 minute, no more. Mustafa.
All right. Thank you, Excellency. I think that we probably live in the worst time to be a journalist. But at the same time, this is the best time to be a journalist. Best time because access to information is much easier than it used to be. Worst time because we live in a post-truth era where feelings and narratives take over facts. I remember Peter Flegel from the Department of Canadian Heritage said during the fellowship that we live in times of identity gaps. The question of identities and their management through diversity is at the core of social cohesion and social divide. This is translated in new media into what is called identity media that provides narratives rather than facts, like, for instance, anti-Muslim, anti-Western civilization, anti-migrants. So it's all about narratives. A lot of these media outlets that are very numerous in new media atmosphere propagates hate speech and are sometimes financed as well or managed by right like far-right movements or radical movements or radical actors, and they target collective identities and memories. So what can be done is to conduct an effort to counter these narratives-based content by producing a content that aims to reveal a common language, publish stories from other sites like peace journalism does, for instance, establish networks and dialogue platforms with international partners like the UNAOC is doing, for instance. This was the idea actually behind the MENA project I conducted with my colleague Kautar as well, as I said before, tackling the issue of French caricatures. So these are some elements of solutions that I see towards this problem. Thank you, Excellency.
Thank you. David, please 1 minute each because we have a lot of speakers later. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna rush through this, of course. On your first point, I always think it's difficult when different human rights clash, religious rights and the right to freedom of expression. There's a particular tension there, and this is what leads to the debates we're having all across the world. But in my opinion, I don't understand human rights as being in competition to each other, but they need to function together. And when clashes like this arise, then they have to be solved in debates like exactly the ones that we're having right now. I'm not sure that I agree with the fundamentalism of human of freedom of speech in France. The term actually. I think it's one approach that a country is taking that seems in relation to others more radical, but I think it's part of the culture that has been established there for years and years, and I wonder if that culture doesn't have similar rights to be to make their decisions as religious communities do. But that's not for me to decide. I'm not French, and I don't need to be part of that debate. Finally, I think it is important that we don't leave the regulation to private corporations, because that at the end is one person who makes the final call, the person who owns the corporation, or even if it's just a few of them. There are principles on business and human rights, and these principles have to apply to Facebook and Google and Twitter and TikTok and all of them, as they have to apply to oil companies or any other corporation that is in the gray areas of human rights.
Thank you, David. So, Elisabeth.
Thank you. I don't think that social media platforms are doing enough. I think they're improving, but I've seen that it varies across different platforms. And even with different forms of hate, I've seen that misogynistic content has been taken down a lot more quickly than anti-Semitic content. So it varies, and I think there's a lot more awareness raising that needs to be done on the platforms and obviously with the platform providers. Secondly, I think we need a global approach, because obviously whilst we're a globe of different nations, these platforms are global, and I've encountered issues where something that would be a hate crime in the UK wasn't a hate crime in said person's country. So we're on a global platform, but we're not operating in a global way. And I think we need a global approach to citizenship, respect and dialogue. I think it's also crucial to remember that there is no right to not be offended. Human rights are about imposing limits for the protection of safety, public safety, individual safety, and that we can't shut down debate, but we have to keep people safe. And I think it's important to remember that there's no one way of living a faith or one way of expressing a view. We need to remember marginalized people within religious communities as well. What about their space? What about their narrative? Religious communities are diverse, and I think it's not just a simple case of the right of religious freedom and the right of expression. Religion is a form of expression. It's two different ways of looking at what essentially is a human form of expression and living our lives, and it's about balancing those two, and they're both important. And also I think that while we definitely need legal mechanisms in place to protect against hate speech, that the other work that needs to be done is on the social level, on the cultural level, about building cohesion. Just like we have the problem of violent and non-violent extremism, non-violent extremism I've encountered online can't always be reported to the police as a threat, but obviously socially it's divisive. And that's the things that we need to be doing on the ground, whilst governments and social media platforms look at more of the legal mechanisms. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisabeth. And finally, Samiha.
Yes, I would like to answer the second question about social media and what they can do to prevent hate speech. I believe that this is one of the reasons behind my speaking when I said about literacy and social media literacy and users who should be aware of what they are doing, as well as once like on Facebook, I've heard that, or I saw that they are starting like using third-party organizations in order to, for example, prevent fake news and misleading news. However, they are not doing much when it comes to hate speech content. And I believe these kind of platforms need the same criteria in order to prevent hate speech by referring to these kind of third-party organizations, those who are specialized when it comes to, especially when it comes to the cultural context, because of course, as we all agree that there's sometimes hate speech that considered in a country that it is a hate speech, while in another that doesn't consider as a hate speech. So I believe if it's a suggestion that for these kind of platforms, maybe one of us who would in the future be be involved in such decisions, that would be something helpful for preventing hate speech and seeing more of freedom of expression. So thank you.
Thank you very much for, I think, has been very interesting, enlightening panel. I think it's an ongoing debate. What we need is to have this kind of debate more often in order that we'll have more clear answer. So thank you very much for giving us your point of view and your concern. And then now, again, 1 minute of break to change for the panelists. Thank you. Okay, so welcome the new panel, the panel exploring the definition of what a word, peace, what a concept. So as you are aware, the culture of peace is defined by the United Nations as a set of values, attitudes, mode of behavior, and ways of life that reject violence and prevent conflict by tackling the root causes to solve problems through dialogue and negotiation among individual groups and nations. Nurturing a culture of peace means that we invest in social cohesion, recognizing that diversity is a richness, not a threat, and that each community must feel that its identity is respected while playing a full part in society as a whole. I have two general questions to the four of you. What is your own definition or understanding of culture of peace? First one. Second one, what role can new media play in overcoming barriers between communities and promoting a culture of peace that is inclusive? So we have four UNOC Fellowship Alumni. You have 2 minutes maximum, try to be short and focused. And we will start with Mr. Ali Gates from the State of Palestine, 2020 Fellow. He was Media and Communication Specialist for CARE. Mr. Gates is an independent journalist reporting human interest stories from Middle East and in Palestine, as well as regular contributor to Open Democracy. He led an alumni association for journalists graduating from the UN training program for Palestinian journalists. So Ali, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I'm very glad to be here, especially in this panel, defining peace. Peace is a very difficult word to decipher and follow upon. As you mentioned, the definition of peace as per the UN protocol, I think, on the other hand, defining peace and its nomenclature is different and between different countries and different regions. And I believe that that peace itself comes from the inside. It's an internal idea that is reflected to the outside. And I'm from Jerusalem. I'm from the city where the three religions come together, supposedly. Religion is supposed to give us the feeling of peace, one might say, but we are in the most contested area on the planet, where there is killing, where there is bigotry and racism overflowing. So that poses this question to me, like, what is peace in this area that's supposed to be peaceful? So I think peace comes from within, from each person, when they are in line of what they're feeling, and therefore they're doing that. They're projecting that good part of them to the outside. That's when we have peace. That's what is propels us to enact peace in all different venues of life, and then taking it to the new media. You mentioned you asked, Your Excellency, about what role can new media play. We are in a multiplier effect of the new media syndrome, where there's misinformation and disinformation. And I think that we are at a time where disinformation had become a tool for espionage and other forms of vilifying the other. Those platforms are majorly dominated by moguls who are after let's say the money side of the equation. They want to make money off of war because that sells in this life, and I think that it's the industry of peace is not as lucrative as it is for war. It has been like this for centuries, and I think that they want to build upon the unease that people are living in, and I think we need more good people to take part in that conversation, because social media and new media is a reflection of people. So when people are actually sharing what they feel on the inside to the outside, this is what we're having, and this is what denies us from defining peace. That's why the definition is peace is not the same in any region in the world, and it never will be until we come to terms with our own stability and balance. And then we would have this tranquility projected into the outer world, into the virtual world, which is new media. Thank you. This is what I have.
Thank you, Ali. Very, very good, and thank you for your comment. Again, I think you are right. The peace has to come from within each one of us, you know. And it's another positive element I want to add in the positive agenda. Against, you know, this obsession about security, you always search for peace. You will not have security, you don't have peace. It's not the opposite. So that's is my personal experience. So thank you very much. Now we move to Mrs. Nawa Ben Weba from Libya, also fellow from 2020. She's a social media journalist for Al Jazeera Arabic. You have a degree in peace and conflict management. You have been a film reporter. You have focused on migrant and refugee stories, and also on topics related to environment and economy. So now you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. It's a pleasure to be here. I would like to start experience with peace by a small, frequently act that happens with me almost every day. Each time I call my home in Tripoli, asking my family how is the situation there and whether peace has yet returned there. The answers I got about peace are various. What I listened, expectations, wishes, and ideas about peace are various from what my sister is saying, my parents, and my grandparents. Age appears to be one among many other elements that influence how we see, how we imagine a peaceful world. So in general, there are many elements that define how we expect peace, how we want peace. A simple Google search on peace might lead to many hundreds of thousands of results, books, videos, comics, magazines, articles. Yet the answer of what is peace and how can we achieve it remains to be answered. There are many research scholars from around the world with many languages still working on peace, and they find actually some hints, some answers, some components that worked in some parts of the world, but it's still not a final answer. On the other hand, humanitarians, activists, us journalists, through our own field, we're trying to find a formula for peace. We're assuming that it will be more practical than the academia world. Yet also, we didn't find a formula for peace. What I want to say that many definitions, many ideas and theories about peace, their problem is that they are oversimplistic. They are acting and dealing with peace as if it's the absence of clashes or absence of drones in the sky or absence of war. But it's broader, much bigger than that. Also, the other flaws in many definitions of peace, that they are not taken into consideration the people who are affected by the war, those who lost their homes, their jobs, their savings, their beloved ones, everything, and those who are tired of being dependent on aid, outside aid and dependency. They are tired of being considered only as beneficiaries or numbers. And here I mention again what my colleague Ali said, things are coming from inside and should be more localized, not from outside. Also elites and politicians, whether in our own countries or from the powerful countries, which are in many conflicts, they take part and they fund arms in many conflicts. They have their own narratives about peace. And their narratives or perceptions are not necessarily wrongful, but they are not applicable everywhere and they're not working everywhere. For the second question about media, and as a media person coming from a region full of conflicts, but also rich in its young population and cultural diversity and historical heritage, I believe social media media in general, but particularly social media, has an instrumental role to play in challenging the simplistic narratives and raising the voice of voiceless, marginalized groups and show their own narratives to the world. Social media and digital platforms in general, as you may know, transformed many big ideas like journalism, like freedom of expression, communication. So it has the potential role also to reshape the way we express peace, the way we build trust, the way we build bridges between us. I will take this chance also to ask each one of us not to abandon digital platforms to peace spoilers and to keep committed to our role, at least by words. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, unfortunately, we don't have too much time. I don't know. We are so packed, but that's the tyranny of the virtual meetings, no? That we don't have the time to have a relaxed exchange. But nevertheless, thank you very much for your concern, and I hope both in Palestine, in Libya, will bring peace very soon for your family and the whole people there. So now we move to Orla Murphy from Ireland. You were fellow from 2016. You are now a speechwriter. I would like to have you in my team. I have a good speechwriter, but I don't know if yours are good of the General Assembly. So everybody consider you a speechwriter. Let's go to see how you speak, today. So go ahead.
Thank you, Excellency. And of course, words mean a great deal to a speechwriter. So earlier we heard participants speak about hate speech. And I think also, when we speak of the power of words, that is the essence of new media and of media today and of media in yesteryear. And I think we look at, Malala Yousafzai, she shared her lived experience through her blog, and that is where she rose to prominence. We've also seen USG Melissa Fleming's Awake at Night podcast, which showcases humanitarians on the front line. And, from social media, we've seen Ala Salah from Sudan, the woman in white, who's of course a peace builder in her own nation, but new media has showcased and really propelled these people to the front of the line. But of course, this has been happening for a long time. This has been happening with lyricists such as Dolores O'Riordan from the Cranberries in her song Zombie, spoke about the conflict in Northern Ireland. We also saw the poetry of Derek Mahon speak about the conflict in Northern Ireland. And I think new media and words and speeches perhaps can really show an insight into the lived experience of another. And I think that cultural commentary, even from a pop artist, can really give an insight to someone on the other side of the world what life is like when there is an absence of peace. And I think I'm not going to take too much time because I'm really looking forward to what Tim has to say. But I also think in terms of my own definition of peace, peace is when human rights and the dignity of each individual is upheld. And I think peace, for me, the essence is freedom. And it's freedom to live a life of one's choosing. It's freedom of expression, of assembly, of protest. But it's also freedom to dream, because when you're trapped in conflict, future and hope seem very, very unlikely. And I think when you have full freedom, that is when we have peace. Thank you, Excellent.
What's his name?
So thank you, Orla, for your definition of peace and your comment. They're very valuable. So we are a bit short of time. So we move now to our friend, Mr. Tim Mortimer. You are from UK, 2020 fellow also. You have been a program manager of the Faith and Belief Forum. You have been focusing on building youth-led interfaith movement and social change. And you are a trained international facilitator with the British Council Active Citizens Program. So, Tim, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Excellency. As you say, I'm an interfaith practitioner. So for me, when I talk about building peaceful relations, I'm talking about building strong relationships of trust between different faith communities. Obviously, we're here today at a UNAOC event, and I think that it is really important that we have a global shared understanding of peace as an aim to work towards. Peace is something that is contextual, and in my work as a peace builder, my work changes from context to context, but I think it's really important to set a standard of peace that we can all aspire to. My work might, for example, be very different in one community where I'm working to reduce hate crime, whereas in another community I'm working to build really strong positive relations. In a similar way, my work could be different if I start with two individuals who aren't really willing to speak to each other, as opposed to working to build relationships between two people that already are willing to collaborate. In terms of new media, my organization is very much focused on storytelling. So Najwa already mentioned the idea of new media bringing out stories of nuance, the personal, the humanizing element, particularly of marginalized voices. I think this is a really, really important way to bust myths, bust stereotypes, and show how identity is multifaceted. We use videos, we use YouTube, we use TikTok, and those kind of platforms to really elevate stories that are complex. It might be, I share a story of someone who is Christian in the UK, but is also Black and is also gay, and talks about how they navigate those different parts of their identity. Or similarly, a woman who is Muslim, who is a hijabi and is also a feminist. I think when you get down to that personal level, it's a really good way to kind of understand the nuances and the complexities and elevate them into the new media space.
Thank you very much, Tim, for your intervention. As I was telling you, we are short of time. I mean, I will return from all your comments. The main message about peace is, it's not a negative concept. It's not the absence of war and conflict. It's a personal attitude. As Orla says, freedom, fraternity within, as Ali said. So I don't know if you want to add something after listening to each of you. If you don't have anything more to add, you will be much welcome, because we have a very short time. But if somebody wants to take the floor again, you are welcome for 1 minute.
Actually, allow me, Your Excellency, to add something very quick. As part of our UNAOC Fellowship, we had to do a project, and we did a documentary named "What is Peace?" So while I was editing the whole, we asked people to send us the short videos defining peace. At the end of me editing the project, I was flabbergasted at the different views and perceptions of peace. But what really stuck, and what is I wanted to end the documentary with is that someone from Gaza said that peace is freedom, just like Orla said. So I think this is a good start for us to follow. This is the trail for us to follow and realize and materialize peace. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much for the work and for the initiative. It's much welcome. I hope you will share with UNAOC. It will be our guidance. Okay. So if there is no more comment, Nawa, Tim, Orla. Okay.
I just wanted to share a little.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Just a little about how important it is to include marginalized voices in our vision of peace. I think there's a lot of the talk about how do we get the right people around the table. What I find consistently in my work is there's a lot of work to do around building trust building before you even get to the table stage, so people feel comfortable and welcome to be part of the conversation and even join at the table. And it might be harder to find funding for that work, and it might take a long time. It might be quite painstaking, but I think that trust building exercise before you get to the consultation table about peace is so important.
Thank you, Tim. So thank you all of you for your very interesting remarks and contribution. So now we are going to welcome our friend, Ambassador Günther Sauter, Deputy Permanent Representative of the Federal Republic of Germany to the United Nations. And as I said in my introductory remark, thank you, you, Excellency, thank you, your ambassador, thank you, your mission, thank you, the German government for the consistent support to us, to this program, not only politically, financially. Without your help and your support, this fantastic meeting should not take place. So without further delay, I want to give you the floor, Ambassador. I know you are quite busy, so please go ahead and share your views of this important initiative.
Okay.
Thank you very much, High Rep Moratinos. And first of all, I was just about to interrupt you after all those thank yous, where it's our pleasure to do that. And we are not only doing it because we are nice, but we are doing it because we believe that this is a fantastic program. So my first message to you is happy birthday. This is the 10th anniversary of a wonderful program. I've been able to participate, at least in this part of the meeting, hearing what great participants you have been able to get on board this year. And I know it has been similar in earlier years. My second message is a bit more complicated. I think the Alliance Civilizations was created in 2005 when the world still looked very different. I think back then we believed that we were dealing with a clash of civilizations and therefore we needed an alliance of civilizations, or maybe even to be more precise, we thought in order not to have a clash of civilization, an alliance of civilizations would be very useful. Well, I'm talking to you towards the end of 2 years of German membership in the Security Council. And our day-to-day experience is it's much worse. We are not only dealing with conflicts between civilizations, we are dealing with conflicts between nations, which are promoted by nationalism. We are dealing every day with ethnic conflict, with conflict that is based on religious arguments. We are dealing, Tim has just referred to that, with conflicts that have to do with the marginalization of groups, be it women, be it LGBTI people, be it people who belong to any other kind of minority. We are dealing with terrorism. This is also still part of our daily reality. So the situation is maybe even more complicated and maybe in a way worse than you were assuming when you were one of the creators of the Alliance back in 2005. And these days, in which unfortunately we can only hold meetings like this one here online, we realize that all this anger in the world is fueled by the media that we all use. Hate speech is an aspect, I know you have discussed it today. We don't only have a pandemic going on, we also have an infodemia going on with all sorts of wrong information being spilled all over the globe by those who are interested. All this is creating a very, very complex situation. But, and this is really what I'm coming to say to you today, we are all working on this. This has been what we have been working very hard on in the Security Council every single day throughout these last 2 years. And after Germany will be leaving the Council on the 31st of December of this year, we will continue to do so and we'll find other ways to do it. This is, High Rep Moratinos, what all the United Nations are about. This is really the core of what all of us in our different functions are doing here. And if you permit me, I would also say that ever since the end of the Second World War and the end of the Nazi regime in Germany, this has been really the core of national identity in my country. This does not mean we are angels. We too have to fight internally with all these problems. We have right-wing extremism, we have anti-Semitism, we have xenophobia and nationalistic people and all of that. So, but the point is, it feels very good to get together with a bunch of committed and clever young people like you to exchange views on that and to stop for a minute and to realize together that in spite of all these huge problems, there is a lot of good forces at work, and you guys are part of these good forces, and we guys are trying our best to do that too. So having said that, I really want to congratulate you, High Rep Moratinos, and all of you as participants. This is a great initiative. The Alliance is still a highly valuable project, and the fellowship is a gem inside that. I hope once this meeting is over, you will all go back to where you have come from in order to continue to work hard to realize the core idea of the Alliance. Let's do that together. I'll be happy to join in on that. Back over to you, High Rep. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Ambassador. I mean, again, thank you to you, to your mission. Thank you to Germany, and thank you for your words. Very sincere and very, I will say, timely word, because we've been, as you say, 2 years of fantastic contribution within the Security Council, which in, you know, trying to witnessing what is going on in this complex world. And I absolutely right, you are absolutely right. When I have modestly the idea to launch this initiative of Alliance that was straightforward, not only dialogue, but we have to be committed all together to really avoid that negative tendency. We were in a different world 15 years ago. And it's true, it was the big angle. You know, we have a terrorist attack, the West against, you know, the Arab Muslim world, try to get a collective approach. And it was already, we were aware of what was coming at the global level, but we didn't were so clear about what was going on in our own society. So today, the Alliance was, I think, needed at that time, was well received, everyone was very happy, was a new initiative. Well, no, when you have a new initiative, well, it's on fashion, no, everybody wants to join. When they become bureaucratic, you don't take too much care about that. No, but now, as you have well identified, the problem in our society, in all society, not only in the European or Western, but in the Arab world, the Muslim world, the African world, in indigenous world and Latin America, you see that the fabric of society need this kind of understanding and respect. And I think, well, I'm convinced of that reason I share with all my alumni and with you. I think if in 2005, the Alliance was necessary, in 2020, the Alliance is absolutely essential. And that's, I think, the way I conceive that, you know, because now in Spain, in Greece, in Italy, in France, in Morocco, in Saudi Arabia, you see that, you know, that is an issue in the national political agenda. And so, well, we are politicians, and so we have to get, of course, the civil society, the Jews, the new actors involved in our task. But at the end of the day, we are the ones who have to resolve problems. So I thank you very much, you know, we will have always a tremendous gratitude for your contribution and your your support, and be sure that we need Germany, either in the Security Council. I hope it will be forever, you know. But in the new multilateralism, I'm sure Germany is going to be a leading country. We need you in Europe, we need you in the world, and I'm sure we need you on the support of the alliance. So I thank you.
If you permit me to just come in very briefly, but you now really prompted me to do it. I just want to say one thing. There's one thing that we really can learn from the situation around 2005, and that was a spirit of, you know, getting on it and tackling these problems. We had this positive dynamics. I was still a baby diplomat at that point within the European Union, between the European Union and Turkey. That was part of that situation too. In the transatlantic relationship, and we were still in a phase in which we believed the Cold War is over, and now let's start and build something new and something good. And this spirit is, I think, what we need right now. And maybe these days, these very concrete days right now here in New York towards the end of 2020, you know, when you go to the United Nations headquarters these days, it's unfortunately too empty because of COVID, but you do sense a little bit that there is a wind of change here. And this may be one of these moments in which we can really seize that and create a much more positive dynamics. And having you on board for that is something that's really important. This is not about, you know, guys with ties in New York. This is about many, many more people.
Thank you very much. Gunther Stoll, thank you, and convey to my friends all my regard, and let's continue to work together. Thank you very much. Thank you. So now we will take a break, and then we will come back for our last panel. Thank you. So we start not the last, the fourth panel. We have another one. I thought it was only four. No, there are 5 panels. So this panel 4 is combating misinformation and promoting media literacy. So you all know that misinformation leads to a spread of false narrative and conspiracy theories. Misinformation was exacerbated during the pandemic, adversely impacting our responses to especially vulnerable communities. The UN launched a verified campaign to combat misinformation in COVID-19. So my 2 questions to the 4 panelists are very clear. There are 3 questions. First, how can the media be used to protect vulnerable individuals and groups for stigmatization? Number 2, what can media literacy be used to combat misinformation? And number 3, how can we make sure that as many people as possible are educated about the responsible use of media and dissemination of information? We have 4 panelists, Mrs. Ann Parson, Mr. Jacobo Otabiani, Mrs. Katwarambrani, and Ms. Hulud Al-Jarma. We'll start with Ann Parson from Ireland. You are a fellow of 2020. You are a visual communication manager at Quirón Open Higher Education. Mrs. Parson was awarded the Bertha Foundation Social Impact Storytelling Fellowship with the Dow School Berlin, which brought her to Kenya, Cambodia, and Thailand, where she profiled change maker and social entrepreneurs with innovative community transforming ideas. So you have the floor, Anne, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I'm delighted to be here today and to talk on this topic. So as you mentioned, I'm working with Cohesion, which is an education platform for refugees, and I'm working out of Berlin, Germany. And this year I'm on secondment as a researcher at the Freie Universität, where I'm researching the media representation of refugees. And something in particular that I've been focusing on lately is something called belief echoes, which are, it's kind of like examining the effects of corrected misinformation on political attitudes. So even with fact checkers and all of these checks and balances that are in place to correct fake news, for example, there's research to suggest that that people's attitudes are not immediately affected by the corrections. So in some ways, this kind of leads to further responsibility at the news agencies, at the media agencies, and with the journalists themselves to ensure that the news that they are publishing is correct and that that there is a high ethical standard there. So that's something that for me, I find fascinating, because while we can encourage media literacy amongst people and in the youth, that the book doesn't stop there. It really should be, in my opinion, back at the media agencies again for a more thorough news research. So that's my take.
Thank you very much. Absolutely right. So now we move to the second panelist. Is from Italy, Jacobo Otabiani. You are also fellow of 2020. You are a chief data officer at Code for Africa. You have designed programs supported by the World Bank and Google. Google, you will tell us about Google. Google New Initiative, and among other, spearheading work in Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, Uganda, and Senegal. You combine satellite and forensic data with drone imagery to create data aggregation that tackles social issues like urban inequality and immigration. So you are quite innovative in your work. So share with us these new elements, no? And tell us about Google, no? It's a big secret, no?
Thank you, Your Excellency. It's very nice to be here and to share a little bit of my experience with you all. I am a computer scientist working in international cooperation, and have been focusing on an area called data-driven journalism in the last 10 years. And I've been working across Europe and Africa in the last 5 years. So I strongly believe that the tech companies like Google or many others need to play a central role in controlling misinformation and disinformation, especially given the amount of fake news that circulate across these platforms. And there are multiple ways to do that, for example, by boosting fact-checking on these platforms and then kind of managing the, trying at least to manage the information that circulate on these platforms. Talking about media literacy and data literacy, which in my opinion are strongly related, we should try to boost media literacy and data literacy, not just on the tech companies, but also on the citizens. So for example, my opinion is that media literacy classes as well as data research, data analysis, data visualizations classes could be introduced in the educational systems across the world. In my opinion, children, but also teenagers and all ordinary citizens should be able to detect fake data and deceiving information that can be published by media all over the world. This is because we are constantly bombarded by a huge amount of data and information, and it's almost impossible to control it, from a technical perspective. There is a way to do that with machine learning and artificial intelligence, but it doesn't seem to be strong enough at the moment to do that automatically. So we also need the citizens to kind of create filters in a way that they can detect when a data visualization is, for example, creating an inflammatory narrative around topics like migration or others. We need the citizens to be protagonists in this, and to do that, we need to boost public education and try to bring these things on, on public curricula. These are my opinions, of course. I've been working in this area for 10 years. I've been seeing how journalists want to know more about data technology. And I think, yeah, bridges are very useful for this, like creating bridges between different backgrounds could be another way to do that.
Thank you very much. It's a pity we don't have too much time to enlarge the discussion, because Anne's experience, your experience is absolutely essential. You talk about the control of the data, who is controlling the data, how you control that, how you can really have a certain, authority in the way these data are circulating. So I took note of your proposal to engage with citizens at the whole level of age, classes, for media literacy. We are doing so in the UNOC, but we have to do more in, artificial intelligence. That's the key issue, no? Who is going to decide the artificial intelligence or ourselves and humanity, I think there are two main concepts today in the world. One is planet, of course. We have to feed the planet, but then the second one is humanity, it's ourselves. What is sapiens? Is going to survive sapiens, or we are going to be under the control of the machine? So that is the question. So thank you very much, Jacopo. And then we will follow. So now we move to Katwarambrani from Morocco. You are also a fellow from 2020. You have been a product policy manager. You also on trust and safety for TikTok. You will start to work as a career as refugee, as a refugee status determination associated with UN Refugee Agency. So you are counting stories of many asylum seekers and also recognition of the status by Moroccan authorities. So Ambrani, because Ambrani is a very influential name in Morocco. I have a lot of friends called Ambrani. I don't know which part of Ambrani are you, but I don't know. Anyhow, Katwa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Excellency. And I think I do know the friend you're referring to, who was the Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Indeed. As a very funny story, when I was interning at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, like during my first year of university, they thought I was linked to him. So like I had this question coming along, but no, there is no relationship whatsoever.
Nevertheless, nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. Okay.
Nobody's perfect, right? But thank you for the introduction and for the opportunity for us fellows to express ourselves and to take this opportunity to meet with you, Excellency. So as you mentioned, I do work now for TikTok, and before that I worked for Facebook. So I am kind of familiar with what Jacopo was referring to in terms of machine learning, and how do you recognize and fact check false information. So, but it isn't as easy as it may sound, because we have a lot of difficulties to recognize hate speech and inflammatory speech, so let alone facts that are presented as being benign without attacking anyone, but that are very malicious indeed. So that is why media literacy is the key. And when we speak of media literacy, it's of course the responsibility of many parts: government, tech companies, international organizations, but also it is our own individual responsibility to, when we see this type of either false information or inflammatory comments that are hateful in nature, to provide counter speech. Because oftentimes those who are presenting this misinformation do organize better, right? Because they have maybe political motives, they have different agencies that motivate them to be very well organized. However, we as individuals who are, I believe we are the majority, the well-meaning, but we're the silent majority. So social media at the end, actually, it's only a representation somehow of society. If it wasn't in social media, we would see it in the way media also portrays different events as they unfold. So we do have this responsibility to present this concept of counter speech. As in Facebook, there is a program that is focused on counter speech, and they are actually partnering with the governments and international organizations to promote that type of content. And so, and of course, it is not scalable. So I know we're speaking of like, oh, we need to fact check, but we need to remember, and because I've worked in the operations, like kind of in trust and safety, trying to maintain like this platform as for it to be as sanitized as possible. We review like millions of contents per day, and so it is not possible to fact check every piece of information. However, what is possible is to disseminate counter speech and to allow also users to give them the tools to recognize what is false or what is more likely to be accurate information through maybe toolkits that are very user-friendly, like very simple things I had to learn in college, as in logical fallacies and all, that could actually be just used in very simple format for users to consume as they go through their feeds. Like, you know, with TikTok now we have 60 seconds videos that are very enjoyable, and people watch them like billions times a day, certainly during the pandemic with so much little to do. So maybe we could actually, like, you know, launch these campaigns to better educate the public in a way that we know they enjoy being interacted with. So yeah, that's it for me, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Katwa. Very interesting for your own experience with these social network companies and the way that technology can really be useful in a positive manner. We will try to get your point into consideration. So now the last speaker in this panel is Mrs. Kholoud Al-Harma from the State of Palestine, 2020 Fellow. You're an anthropologist and an advocate for refugee rights. You have also been the founder of Refugee Youth Forum, an innovative platform for human rights research and media among refugee youth from the West Bank. So you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and it is an honor to be here today. I was born and grew up in a refugee camp, and I witnessed how my community was portrayed in the media, both within local media and international media. And I think that media literacy today is very important means to widen the scope of knowledge about vulnerable communities and the marginalized communities. I think it is also important to think about our terminology when we talk about these people, both within the media and within ourselves. So for example, when we talk about these communities as voiceless people. In fact, these are not voiceless people. They do have a voice. Sometimes they don't have the platforms for to amplify their voices. And when we look at, for example, the way people look at refugees and migrants and the ideas that some media platforms perpetuate about them, we can see how a lot of the time these people are being seen as the other. Whilst if we look closely, every person comes with their knowledge, with their indigenous knowledge or their education. They are also people who have assets. So it is important to look at these people as people who have assets rather than people who are coming with problems. If we are talking, for example, about marginalized communities or refugee communities, for example, in Europe. Another issue that is very important when we talk about media literacy is the importance that these platforms give not only for marginalized communities, but as platforms for communication and for advocacy among people. During the fellowship, for example, a group of us worked on looking at different social media platforms and different tools of mobilization and awareness raising that people are using across the globe. And we studied, for example, the hashtags, the importance of hashtags on social media. And we looked at a hashtag like, for example, Black Lives Matter, and its importance not only within the US, but within it created a momentum of solidarity among people who are marginalized across the world and people who are profiled across the world. So we looked at, for example, how people in the UK used the hashtag, how people in the Arab region used the hashtag, and how it was used by different vulnerable groups to amplify their voice and to speak out about the racial injustices that they are facing in their communities. So I think, and indeed it was mentioned by my colleagues here and also in other panels, the media is an environment for dialogue. And I think with the right tools, it can be very important in not only amplifying the voice of marginalized communities, but a tool of peace and a tool of education. And I'll stop here.
So thank you very much, Hulud. Very interesting for the use of the right terminology and the different tools and initiatives. Well, we have very constraints on the time, so I don't know if one of you want to comment on some intervention of the other. You have 1 minute, but I mean, if you want to comment, it would be good for the time constraint, but you have the possibility to take again the floor. I don't know if Anne or Jacobo or Hulud or Qatar want to take the floor again, very shortly. No more comments?
I'm happy to just comment on Khulud's point there and reiterate again the importance of terminology and editorial policy in certain media organizations as well. And I think that it's a very interesting debate, just how particularly certain terms can influence people's perceptions. And one that I know that I'm coming across a lot in my research at the moment is the word refugee, and also how people identify with that, how different media organizations use that, the word migrant, and I think that that's certainly an interesting debate, which I'd like to discuss more at another time when we're not under such time constraints. But
we will try to have another occasion. So thank you very much for 4 of you, and thank you for very interesting contribution. I think we have taken note of that, and so we'll be working on this proposal and this thought. So now we have another break for the last panel. So wait, stay with us, and we will finalize with the panel 5, engaging in all society partnership, individual Okay, so thank you very much. We are going to start the last panel, engaging all of society partnership. So we have, as you all are aware, that today's global challenges, they only require a whole of society approach, especially when we are tackling issues such as racism, xenophobia, discrimination, and we are exploring action and responses that can strengthen respect, trust, and mutual understanding. So my question to you, in order to really framework your answer, are the following ones. So first, what is important to adopt? Why is important to adopt an all society approach in your point of view during these challenging times? How can we use new media to work more inclusively? And how can we make sure that all society partnership also include and empower a smaller and underrepresented groups and not just the big players? So with us, we have 4 panelists. We have Mrs. Amal El-Jabali from Lebanon, Mr. Peter Mossad from Egypt, Mrs. Veronica Verner for Russian Federation, and Mr. Walid Al-Nafbahim from Palestine. So we'll start with Amal El-Jabali. You are from Lebanon. We hope you will have a government quite soon. Let's hope, inshallah. You are 2020. You are being Inclusion Outreach Education Assistant of UNICEF. You have been supporting program implementation with children, including child protection, and you have a master in education, and you are pursuing another in diplomacy and international relations. So Amal, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Excellency. So to begin, when we look at our society today, we see a great diversity and at the same time disparity with massive economic and social developments. We have countries that are global powers, and then we also have countries that are rapidly trying to catch up with the developed world. Migration, globalization, modernization are all actively influencing the social makeup of a country in extraordinary ways. So promoting peace and fostering social cohesion in an all-society approach is essential in targeting perceived inequalities, injustices, and exclusion. Countries all over the world are going through significant and rapidly changing environments, especially when it comes to the COVID pandemic, which has only added to socio-ethnic and religious hostilities. But the key is to withstand and embrace these challenges and these changes. It's critical that all of society, especially at the local level, to work on these policies and strategies to manage conflict, build peace, and to also promote the country in an equitable and inclusive manner. So social cohesion is the responsibility of all, not just governments alone. For example, civil society, non-state actors, the media, who all have their parts to play in public consciousness and recognizing that there are more commonalities than the differences between diverse groups. And lastly, social cohesion is not ideal in that it's attainable, but it's not something that, or it's something that requires active and constant commitment at all levels of society in order for it to be achieved. If I just want to look at the Lebanon context, we have the Lebanese population and we have the refugee community. So social cohesion initiatives are highly sensitive here, but at the same time, refugees need to be considered members of societies. And for that to be achieved, there needs to be long-term trust that's established, and then also cooperation between refugee communities and host communities in order, especially for that segregation and tension to decrease. In terms of the role of social media in building a more inclusive society, really it's about bringing balanced and factual information. It's about giving a voice to the marginalized groups. It's about seeking solutions to social, economic, and political problems, and then avoiding stereotypes of ethnic groups and social groups.
Thank you very much for a very clear approach about one whole society, you know, working together, different actors, different stakeholders, and the way they have to perform. So now we move to Mr. Peter Mossad from Egypt. You are also fellow of 2020. You are co-founder of Robabikia. I think it's an organization, Robabikia, which provides a space for youth to express their creativity, changing ideas and solutions that address social issues through art and culture. So you work now as Human Resource Senior Administration for Egyptian BPO company. So Peter, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Thank you for hosting us today and giving us the space to talk about this wide range of topics. I would like to answer the third question about how to have an inclusive platform for everyone to work through. Especially during COVID-19, we all have faced challenges, starting from how to adapt with the situation, how to work from home, and especially for us as working in art or even working on the professional aspect. And I think that through this, we have a lot of things to adapt with, and also we did good with it. And this through the ideas that youth presented and also adapted during the COVID pandemic. I think also for me, speaking about art and culture, I think that we need also to have more encourage and also to be persistent on what we're doing, because art and culture during the pandemic also helped us and assisted us to be able to transfer the message and also to tell people about how to describe the situation around the world. Also, on the other hand, I think that it's really important to use arts and culture and also to be embedded with youth in all the activities that they are doing, because this will give us a better understanding of how different cultures and people from different cultures think and how to address the issues that we have. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Peter, and thank you for, I think, a dimension that unfortunately is many times forgotten. That is the essence of what we can call humanity. That is art and culture. I mean, we are talking every time about politics, about peace, about conflict, about social behavior. And we forgot that through culture and art, we can really at least solve, understand better the reality. So I think we should include as much as we can the culture and artistic activities. We want to really counteract with the so-called negative factors and actors in our society. So thank you very much for that. So now we move to Veronica Verner. You are from Russian Federation. So you are also fellow 2020. You have been a communication specialist for the Council of Europe, not the European Council of Europe, because people get confused. So it's a different organization, very important. I was chairing that in 2007, sorry. You are working in the UN Resident Coordinator Office in Senegal, and you are also contributing to the Cause Peace and the Russian Open School of Sustainable Development. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and thank you for a nice remark about Council of Europe. What I would like to say about the importance to adopt all of a society approach when we're working to promote peace is that I I think what's important is to make people realize that peace is the affair of everyone, because I think often most of people think that peace is something opposite to war, or that, you know, that peace building is something which is done by the men in the big rooms in the suits, and it's only affair of the decision makers. I think we need to understand that we, as Tim said, are people to participate in the peace building activities. They need to build trust that they, you know, can talk and they can participate in a peace dialogue. But I think we should also realize that we need to build this confidence over time that, you know, each of us can and should participate in a peace dialogue. That peace, it's something which is built, you know, little by little every day. It's a respect people have for each other in a society. It's the way we learning to celebrate our differences when we, you know, can just live together peacefully, or if we have conflicts, we can resolve them through a dialogue and not through violent conflict. So I think it's a process, and I think in education, and I think the governments should integrate peace education in the school curriculum. And in this way, I think people will understand that peace is the affair of everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Spasiba большое, and thank you. And now we have the last speaker, it's Walid al-Bahin from Palestine, 2020 fellow. I think you are the founder of Media Show Initiative. And well, I was congratulating Peter Mossad for bringing art and culture. And you are one of who are implementing it, you know, with your video festival of Gaza mobile film, and well, to promote this use of digital media among youth. So, Walid, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. It's my honor to be here tonight. Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone from the besieged Gaza. Actually, I've been working with non-profit organizations for the last 10 years, and my work as a freelance consultant provided me with an insight about what's happening, especially when dealing with issues that is deeply rooted within societies such as freedom of speech, human rights, and gender-based violence, for example. And this is why we should and why it's important to engage all of society partnerships. And from my expertise, I can name a few reasons why we should do that. First of all, it's to understand the problem, because if we don't understand the problem very well, we will end up by applying the wrong medicine, which most of the time will cause more harm than good. And most of the time, we see only the tip of the iceberg, but we need to carefully analyze and carefully study the problem by engaging all of the society, all of the minorities, majorities, the powerful and the weak groups in the process to identify and to have a holistic overall picture about what's going on, in order to identify the cause, the deeply hidden causes, and to identify the right approach to deal with it. Also, because we are dealing with very complicated issues, one organization or one body could never solve the problem, because of it most of the time it requires a huge amount of resources, and most of the organizations and even governments are under-resourced, and they don't have enough budget and money to intervene or to apply a holistic intervention to solve such problems. So that's why we need everybody and everyone to contribute to solving such a thing. One more is the sense of ownership. You know, when we are dealing with very sensitive issues and very complicated issues, like, let's say, peacemaking or violation of human rights or gender-based violence, let's say, we need to include everyone in the process of identifying the solution to promote the sense of ownership. If we leave one group or one or more than one group behind, those groups will feel like they are being neglected and they will not be part of the solution that we apply. So that's why we need to bring everybody in the process from the beginning to identify what is the solution to apply and then go forward and apply it. From my experience with youth, we've done so many interventions, and the key to its success were that they were in the essence of it. So they were responsible for identifying the problem and coming out with the solution and implementing that solution. That's the key to approaching such issue. And most important of all, it's a matter of respecting human rights. If we are like dealing with some issue from perspective of one group or the majority or minority or whatever you name it, and leaving behind one or more groups, it's like we are violating their rights. We are not respecting, we are dehumanizing it. So it should be, everyone should be included when doing that. And luckily, we live in a time that we have the new media, which made everything easier to us, at least in ways to approach or to get to the underprivileged groups and those who didn't used to have or to voice their demands because they didn't have like proper ways and technologies. But right now, the new media provided a platform and provided a voice for everybody. So everyone who has an internet connection and have like a mobile or a laptop, they can just speak out on Twitter or social media platforms saying that I have this and that, I need this and that. So it helped lots of people and provided them with the ability and capacity to at least express their opinions. And we need and we should build on that we have these groups that we should include in whatever intervention we do. And the key to make sure that we are using new media to be more inclusive is to start by analyzing the problem and the situation. Careful research and the participatory approach that starts from the bottom all the way up is the key, because this guarantees that everyone is included, no one is left behind, and their voices are heard. I think that maybe recently you have been hearing about the something called the accountability to affected population. It's like a term that is being used in the humanitarian context or humanitarian interventions, that every organization that is doing something should be held accountable to the affected population. I think this is something that we should build on and capitalize on, that the affected people should be able to hold those doing the interventions, or being NGOs or INGOs or governments should be held accountable before the affected populations, to at least make sure that those populations are included and their demands are heard.
So thank you, Walid. Thank you to all of you. I think as other panelists, other panel, you will have, but now even shorter, if you want to comment on what your colleague and the panel have said. It's not necessary you have to comment, but if some of you want to really add something, very shortly, 30 seconds or 40 seconds, 1 minute maximum, whatever you want, because at the end you will speak whatever you want, so I will not cut you. So who wants to take the floor just to close the debate? Nobody? Okay.
It would be my pleasure, Your Excellency, to conclude this panel. And it was
Peter first, and then you Walid after.
So, sorry, Walid, for just taking the opportunity. I just would like to build on what my colleagues just said, and my fellows also just said. I think that it's important today for the NGOs and also the INGOs to start on funding and trying to fund, and not only that, speaking about the financial funding, but also about the logistical funding, and also trying to monitor and trying to educate people, especially youth in the very young age, to start to take the responsibility of their own communities, their own societies, to start to work in the issues that they are facing, on the issues that they are facing. This would be something crucial, because we know that like INGOs or global and international initiatives are trying to they working and trying to secure fund to keep on going, to keep the sustainability. So I think also vulnerables and also people from minority deserve some of that share to be shared with them as well. Thank you, Your Excellency, for the time.
Thank you, Peter. Your Walid, last word.
Thanks, Your Excellency. So from my experience, I found that empowering people to be the change agents themselves, not acting on their behalf, is the key to success, and to ensure that they are not being represented, that they are actually representing themselves. And what we have done with the youth over the past few years, that we only provided them with the platforms and the tools so that they can go out to the world and speak their minds without any interventions or filters from any other any external organization. That is, like, we make sure that their own words reaches the whole world. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know if my dear ladies want to have a word. If not, they will criticize Mr. Moratino not to give the floor, the voice to our dear friends.
Thank you. If I may, what I would like to say is I would like to think that the future is like in the use of blended formats. For example, this year the UNAOC Fellowship was entirely virtual. But I think the future is like when we can have like a meeting, an actual meeting, but the people who for any reason who are not able to be in this meeting, they still can participate and join us. And you know, like the reason can be anything. They couldn't travel, or it's a person with disability who couldn't, you know, travel so far. And I think when we after, like, you know, the pandemic is over, I think it's important to still like keep the new media and the virtual formats as a part of our reality, so we can include people who are sometimes forgotten.
Okay, Veronica. Anal, no?
I'll say just one final thing to wrap everything up. I think that everyone has a role when it comes to in peace. Everyone has a role. I know that the idea seems among society, it's just like, I'm just a small person to achieve peace, but everyone has to put their hand in the pot of gold kind of thing. You know, it's governments, it's civil society, everyone can make a change and everyone can make a difference.
Thank you, Amal. So thank you, all of you. I think it was a very enlightening discussion and very fruitful proposal. So now is the time for concluding. I'm not going to prolong the very, I would say, enlightening meeting. For me, it has been a real pleasure, a great chance to have all of you. I learned a lot. I learned your concern. I learned your proposal. I learned from you how you are trying to build up a better society in all your own communities and evolve. And I think I feel proud of the work of all of you. And I hope that it will help you in the next chapter of your professional and personal life. Let me say to all of you that but let's be frank, you are a privileged class. And you are the, I would say, I don't need to convince you of what we have been discussing. I mean, you are convinced. You share the same value, the same objective, the same concern, the same frustration, the same aspiration. So it's good to have you. Excellent. That's the reason we support this program. But are you aware that the battle is going to be extremely difficult? The world we have to live is fantastic, marvelous, extremely complex, much more complex during my old time as a former diplomat, you know. So you have to equip yourself, of course, with new technology, knowledge, experience, but you have to maintain during the next weeks, months, and years with the same spirit of creating a better world. They are not going to put you easily. Don't think that you are winning. No, unfortunately, the dark, forces of society are working even, I will say, in certain occasions better than ourselves. I don't know if we are in the good side or they are on the wrong side, but I'm defending what I consider is the majority of sharing this kind of world. So my message is of hope, but also that you will maintain your commitment. And then don't be pessimistic. Don't be, frustrated. You have to fight every day. Waking up every morning, it's a new day, it's a new chance, a new opportunity. And you have to demonstrate that your values and what you think are valuable and can be reached. Even sometimes you wake in the morning and you don't think that the environment outside yourself, either your family, your nation, your country, your region, is good. But nevertheless, it can be changed if we want. It can be changed. If we don't want to, we want to maintain things as we are today, that is not good. So thank you again for sharing with us this, I think, enlightening initiative, this webinar, I don't know how they call it. I hope next time we can meet in person. I would prefer face-to-face, just to look at your eyes, at your gesture, at your body language. Of course, the screen is good. It's a good technology, but it's not reality, So thank you very much. And take care and take safe of this COVID, and then continue your personal and professional fight for the benefit of the one humanity. That is what we defend. So thank you very much, and thank you for participating in this fellowship program. Thank you. Bye.